The email arrived at 2:17 a.m., slicing through the silence of Ethan Cole's apartment like a blade. He wasn't asleep. He hadn't been sleeping much lately. Growth charts, investor calls, expansion plans, they had been looping in his mind for weeks. When his phone vibrated on the coffee table, he expected another late-night update from the development team in Singapore. Instead, he saw the subject line, "Board decision, immediate action required." His chest tightened before he even opened it. He read the first sentence once, then again. The words rearranged themselves in his mind, but their meaning did not change. Effective immediately, he was removed as Chief Executive Officer. The board had voted unanimously. Leadership would transition to Daniel Harper. Daniel. For a moment. Ethan thought it was a mistake. Some internal draft sent too early, some clerical error. He scrolled down, searching for clarification. There was none. At the bottom, neat and cold, were the signatures of every board member, and beneath them a line that burned into his vision. Motion initiated by Daniel Harper. Ethan didn't feel anger at first. He felt hollow, as if the air had been pulled from the room. He stood slowly, pacing across the hardwood floor. The city, outside his window, was dark and quiet. Unaware that his world had just shifted, he called Daniel. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. "Call me," Ethan said, his voice steady in a way that surprised him. Now he ended the call and stared at his reflection in the window. 6 years ago, that reflection had been hopeful, tired but hopeful. Back then, the company had been nothing more than a sketch on a napkin and a shared belief that they could build something better. He remembered the night they decided to quit their jobs. They had sat in a cramped diner splitting fries because they were saving money. Daniel had laughed and said, "If we fail, at least we failed trying." Ethan had believed him. He had believed in them. Now the word "them" felt fragile. His phone buzzed again. Not Daniel. A message from a board member. "I'm sorry it had to happen this way. We can talk in the morning." It had to happen this way. Ethan felt something stir beneath the numbness. Not rage yet. Something sharper. Confusion mixed with disbelief. He opened his laptop and scanned recent board meeting summaries. He had sensed tension. Investors pushing for faster expansion. Daniel advocating bold acquisitions. Ethan urging caution, insisting on solid foundations before scaling further. They had argued, yes, but argue meant debate. Debate meant respect. Didn't it? The phone rang at 2:46 a.m. Daniel. Ethan answered immediately. "Tell me this isn't real." There was a pause, not static, not hesitation, a pause heavy with intention. "It's real," Daniel said. The calm in his voice struck harder than any shout could have. "You led this?" Ethan asked. "Yes." The word landed like a verdict. "Why?" Another pause, shorter this time. "Because the board lost confidence. Growth is slowing. Competitors are moving faster. We can't afford hesitation." Ethan's voice sharpened. "You removed me. It wasn't personal." Ethan let out a dry laugh. "You went behind my back. I did what I thought was necessary." Necessary, the word echoed in Ethan's mind long after Daniel finished explaining. Investors were nervous. Market pressure was rising. Ethan's careful strategy was seen as fear. Daniel had convinced the board that decisive leadership was required. Immediate restructuring, aggressive expansion. "I built this company," Ethan said quietly. "So did I," Daniel replied. "And I'm trying to protect it." Protect it. From me. The thought formed without permission. "You could have talked to me," Ethan said. "I tried," Daniel answered. "You wouldn't bend." Silence stretched between them. In that silence, Ethan realized something painful. Daniel believed what he was saying. He wasn't gloating. He wasn't cruel. He sounded convinced, almost righteous. That realization hurt more than betrayal driven by greed would have. The call ended without resolution. No shouting, no threats. Just a final strained goodbye. Bye. Morning, the news had spread. Headlines praised the bold leadership shift. Articles framed Daniel as the visionary pushing the company into its next phase. Ethan was described as founding executive transitioning out. Transitioning. As if he had packed his desk willingly, his inbox flooded. Some messages were supportive. Others were carefully neutral. A few were blunt. This is the right move for growth. He scrolled through social media. Employees posted about exciting new direction. Investors expressed confidence. Daniel released a public statement thanking Ethan for his contributions while emphasizing the need for dynamic adaptation. Ethan read that line 3 times. Dynamic adaptation. 6 years ago. Dynamic adaptation had meant sleeping in the office during product launch week. It had meant pawning his watch to make payroll when funding was delayed. It had meant defending Daniel's ideas when others called them reckless. Now it meant he was expendable. He drove to the office anyway. No one had told him not to come. But as he walked through the glass doors, the receptionist's smile faltered. Conversations dimmed. A few employees avoided eye contact. Others looked at him with sympathy. Sympathy felt worse than hostility. He took the elevator to the top floor. His access card still worked. Inside his office, everything was exactly as he had left it the evening before. A notebook open on the desk, a half-empty mug of coffee, a whiteboard filled with strategy notes in his handwriting. For a moment, he imagined this was all reversible. A misunderstanding. It's a temporary suspension. Then he saw the calendar invite on his computer screen. Leadership transition meeting. 10 a.m. led by Daniel. Harper led by Daniel. He closed the laptop slowly. There was a knock at the door. Daniel stepped inside without waiting for permission. He looked composed, suit pressed, expression controlled. They stood facing each other across the desk they had once assembled together. I didn't want it to be like this. Daniel began. Ethan crossed his arms. But it is. The board needed confidence. So you removed me. I repositioned leadership. The corporate phrasing scraped against Ethan's patience. You blindsided me. If I had warned you, you would have fought it. Of course I would have fought it, Ethan snapped. It's my company. It's our company, Daniel corrected. And it was at risk. Ethan searched Daniel's face for guilt, for regret. He found something else, determination. You think I was holding it back? Ethan said. I think you were afraid to take the leap. And you think pushing faster won't break it? I think standing still will. Stared at each other, the argument beneath the betrayal finally exposed. This wasn't just ambition, it was philosophy. Daniel believed bold action saved companies. Ethan believed reckless speed destroyed them. 2 visions, 1 boardroom. 1 winner. You could have trusted me, Ethan said, softer now. Daniel's jaw tightened. I trusted you to adapt. You didn't. The words settled heavily between them. For the first time, Ethan understood the depth of it. Daniel hadn't seen himself as betraying a friend. He had seen himself as correcting a weakness. In Daniel's mind. This was duty. That realization shifted something inside Ethan. The pain sharpened. Betrayal born from malice could be dismissed as cruelty. Betrayal born from conviction felt personal. You're making a mistake, Ethan said. Maybe, Daniel admitted. But it's my responsibility now. Responsibility. Ethan nodded slowly. Then it's all yours. Daniel hesitated, as if expecting a louder reaction. When none came, he turned and left. Ethan remained alone in the office they had once shared. In spirit. He looked around at the framed photos from early launch days, the team smiling in a cramped workspace. Daniel with his arm around Ethan's shoulder, both of them exhausted and proud. He took one frame down and studied it. They had believed in loyalty. In partnership, he placed the frame gently into a box. Packing was quick. A few books, personal notes, the pen his father had given him when the company first secured funding. Each item felt heavier than its weight. As he stepped into the hallway carrying the box, employees pretended to focus on their screens. A few nodded respectfully. No one stopped him. The elevator doors closed. Descending felt symbolic in the parking garage. He placed the box on the passenger seat and sat behind the wheel without starting the engine. The silence returned, thicker now. Anger finally arrived. Not explosive, not loud. Cold. It began as a quiet thought. He took what we built, then another. He made you look weak, then the most dangerous one. He will pay for this. Ethan didn't recognize himself in that moment. He had always believed in reason, in fairness, in dialogue. Yet now, as he gripped the steering wheel, he imagined board members questioning Daniel's leadership, investors losing trust, public opinion shifting. He knew things about the company, strategic vulnerabilities, decisions Daniel had pushed that skirted ethical gray zones. Nothing illegal, but risky. Information was power. And Ethan had plenty of it. He started the car at last and drove home, the city bright under the midday sun, unaware of the storm forming quietly inside him. By evening, messages slowed. The initial shock had passed. For everyone else, the world moved on quickly, but Ethan didn't. Ethan did not rush. Revenge, he realized, required patience. The first week after his removal, he stayed quiet. He ignored interview requests. He declined invitations from former colleagues who wanted to catch up. Publicly, he appeared calm, reflective, even supportive of the transition. Privately, he was studying every move Daniel made. From his apartment desk, Ethan watched the company he built accelerate under Daniel's command. Press releases announced aggressive expansion into new markets. A risky acquisition was finalized within days. Investors applauded the boldness. The stock price ticked upward. On the surface, Daniel looked unstoppable, but Ethan knew the pressure beneath that surface. Rapid growth meant thin margins. Thin margins meant vulnerability. Daniel was pushing hard, betting everything on speed. Ethan began organizing old files, financial forecasts, internal debates, emails where Daniel insisted on fast decisions despite warnings from analysts. Nothing illegal, nothing criminal, but enough to raise serious questions about stability and judgment. He told himself he was not fabricating anything. He was simply revealing truth. Still, each document he saved into a private folder felt like crossing a line at night. He replayed arguments from months earlier. He remembered warning Daniel about overextending cash reserves. He remembered Daniel dismissing concerns, saying, "If we hesitate, we lose momentum." At the time, Ethan had thought it was healthy debate. Now, he saw those moments as proof that Daniel's confidence bordered on recklessness. One afternoon, Ethan met with Mrs. Langford, the mentor who had once guided them both. They sat in a quiet cafe away from downtown. He didn't just remove me, Ethan said. He rewrote the story. I'm painted as cautious to a fault. And were you? She asked calmly. I was responsible. She stirred her tea slowly. And he believes he is responsible now. Ethan's jaw tightened. He betrayed me? Yes, she agreed. But what are you planning to do with that pain? He didn't answer directly. Instead, he spoke about market risks, about ethical gray areas and recent acquisitions, about investor trust being fragile. He framed his plan as corporate accountability. Mrs. Langford listened without interrupting. When he finished, she asked only one question. If you succeed in exposing him, what happens to the employees? The question lingered long after he left the cafe. Revenge was not isolated. It rippled. That night, Ethan opened his laptop and drafted an anonymous tip to a respected business journalist. He described concerns about unsustainable growth, attached selective documents, and hinted at internal conflict. The message was sharp but factual. It would not destroy the company outright, but it would plant doubt. He hovered over the send button. His pulse quickened. Not from fear of consequences, but from anticipation. Daniel would be forced to defend his decisions. The board would question him. Investors would hesitate, the balance would shift. Ethan closed the laptop without sending it. Not yet. He wanted precision. If he acted too soon, Daniel could recover easily. If he waited for the right moment, perhaps after the next earnings report, the impact would be stronger. Days turned into weeks. Ethan tracked quarterly projections. He noticed subtle cracks. Operating costs rising faster than expected. Employee turnover increasing under new pressure. Daniel's public confidence remained steady, but interviews hinted at strain. Ethan felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sorrow. He knew Daniel was carrying weight. He also knew he could make it heavier. Late one evening, he received a call from a former senior manager still inside the company. They spoke carefully. "It's intense here," the manager admitted. "Daniel's pushing hard." "Some people are worried about what?" Ethan asked. "Burnout, cash flow. But he believes it will pay off." Ethan hung up and stared at the city lights outside his window. Daniel had always believed bold risks led to greatness. That belief had fueled their early success. It had also created this fracture. Was Daniel reckless now, or simply consistent? The next morning, Ethan refined his plan. Instead of an anonymous leak, he considered something more strategic, presenting concerns directly to key investors. He still had relationships. If he framed it as constructive insight rather than sabotage, he could destabilize Daniel's authority without appearing vindictive. The thought appealed to him. It felt smarter, cleaner. Yet beneath the strategy, one truth remained. He wanted Daniel to feel what he had felt at 2:17 a.m. shock, powerlessness, lost. Ethan finally scheduled a discreet meeting with a journalist known for investigative depth. He prepared a folder, organized, factual, compelling. The narrative was clear. Rapid expansion built on fragile foundations. The night before the meeting, he barely slept. He walked through his apartment, rehearsing explanations in his mind. He imagined headlines questioning Daniel's leadership. He imagined the board calling emergency sessions. He also imagined the employees reading those headlines. The same employees who had once trusted both founders. For a moment, doubts surfaced. Not about the validity of the information, but about his motive. Was he protecting the company or punishing Daniel? The line between justice and revenge blurred. Morning arrived quickly. Ethan dressed carefully, choosing the same calm expression he had worn since his removal. He placed the folder into his briefcase and stepped outside. The air was crisp. The city moved forward as always, unaware of the decision about to unfold. As he walked toward the cafe where the journalist waited, Ethan felt the weight of every choice behind him. He had been betrayed, he had been humiliated, he had every reason to strike back. But reasons did not erase consequences. Inside his briefcase lay more than documents. It held the power to wound, and as he reached for the cafe door, one question pressed against his thoughts: when this is done, who will I become?